Hi everyone. Today's topic for discussion is mechanical ventilation and care of patients on mechanical ventilators. First, we will see the definition of mechanical ventilation. Mechanical ventilation can be defined as the technique through which gas is moved toward and from the lungs through an external device connected directly to the patient, which means with the assistance of an external device, breathing takes place. What is the difference between spontaneous respiration and mechanical ventilation? Spontaneous respiration means that is a natural breathing. In natural breathing, there will be a negative inspiratory force which pulls air into the lungs, whereas in mechanical ventilation, there will be a positive inspiratory pressure. Using this positive pressure, air is pushed into the lungs. That is a difference. That means in natural breathing, a negative pressure is created which pulls the air into the lungs, whereas in mechanical ventilation, using a positive pressure which is created by the mechanical ventilator, air is pushed into the lungs. That is the difference between these two. We will see the normal breathing. Normal breathing during inspiration, the diaphragm and external intercostal muscles contract, causing the rib cage to expand and move outward and expanding the thoracic cavity and lung volume. This creates a lower pressure within the lung than that of the atmosphere, causing air to be drawn into the lungs. You know the physiology of normal breathing. That's during inspiration, what happens? The rib cage moves up and out due to the contraction of the intercostal muscles, and the diaphragm moves down due to the contraction of the diaphragm. And as this rib cage moves outward and diaphragm moves down, a negative pressure or a low pressure is created inside the thoracic cavity. When there is the pressure is less than the atmospheric pressure, the air rushes into the lungs. That is how inspiration takes place in normal breathing. And we will see how is the expiration. During expiration, the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles relax, causing the thorax and the lungs to recoil. The air pressure within the lungs increases to above the pressure of the atmosphere, causing air to be forced out of the lungs. During forced inhalation, the internal intercostal muscles and abdominal muscles may be involved in forcing air out of the lungs, where we are pushing out of the air from the lungs. That is forced exhalation. But during expiration, that is normal expiration, there is no force. It is a passive mechanism. That is the intercostal muscles and diaphragm relaxes, which causes a thorax and the lungs to recoil. Okay, when the lungs recoils or it comes back to the normal state before inspiration, then the pressure inside the lungs will be increased and air will be pushed out of the lungs as the atmospheric pressure is less than the thoracic pressure. Then we'll see mechanical ventilation. The types of mechanical ventilation, that is negative pressure ventilation and a positive pressure ventilation. A positive pressure ventilation is again divided into two, invasive and non-invasive positive pressure ventilation. What is negative pressure ventilators? First, it came during the period of polio outbreak. That is early negative pressure ventilators, which are known as iron lungs. You can see in the picture, it's an iron cage. The patient's body was encased in an iron cylinder and negative pressure was generated. These iron lungs are still occasionally used today, but not as in the previous days. See, this is the first one is the picture of an iron lung. That is the body of the patient is encased in an iron cage. and only the head is outside. The ports you can see certain openings through which we can give care to the patient. And the other one, second picture, is the modern iron lung designed to address ventilator shortage during this COVID-19 period by the British scientist. The intermittent short-term negative pressure ventilation is sometimes used in patients with the chronic diseases now also. When the patient has to be discharged from the hospital and in a tertiary, in a community setting or at home, it's very difficult to manage a positive pressure ventilator by an unskilled person. So here the negative pressure ventilators can be used occasionally. In such conditions, the use of these negative pressure ventilators is restricted in clinical practice because they limit positioning and movement, and also they lack adaptability to large or small size chest or small body size. Now we'll see positive pressure ventilation. What are the indications for mechanical ventilation? This mainly three indications, that is acute respiratory failure, prophylactic ventilatory support, and hyperventilation therapy. In this acute respiratory failure, we have seen already, we have discussed, that is respiratory failure type 1 and type 2. In this hypoxic lung failure, that is type 1 respiratory failure, it may be ventilation perfusion mismatch, diffusion defect, right to left shunt, alveolar hypoventilation, decreased inspired oxygen, acute life-threatening or vital organ threatening tissue hypoxia. These are the causes of acute respiratory failure, that is type 1 respiratory failure. Then type 2 respiratory failure, that is acute hypercapnic respiratory failure. Under that, first one is CNS disorders. In CNS disorders, there may be reduced drive to breathe or increased drive to breathe. In reduced drive to breathe, examples are depressant drugs like depressant drugs if we administer, or in case of any toxicity, drug overdose. In such cases, mechanical ventilation may be needed. Then brain or brainstem lesions like stroke, trauma, or tumors. Then increased drive may be from or caused by increased metabolic rate, because here the carbon dioxide production will be increased, leading to respiratory distress or respiratory failure. Then metabolic acidosis. Then next one coming under acute hypercapnic respiratory failure is neuromuscular disorders. Under that, paralytic disorders like myasthenia gravis, Guillain-Barré syndrome, poliomyelitis, etc. Paralytic drugs like nerve gas, succinylcholine, insecticides, or we can say example is anesthesia. Then drugs that affect neuromuscular transmission, examples are calcium channel blockers, long-term adenocorticosteroids. Then impaired muscle function, maybe resulting from electrolyte imbalance, severe malnutrition, or chronic pulmonary disease. Then the third one in type 2 respiratory failure is the increased work of breathing. It may be caused by pleural occupying lesions like pleural effusions, hemothorax, empyema, or pneumothorax. Then chest wall deformities like flail chest, kyphoscoliosis, or obesity. Flail chest means that is a symmetry will not be there, okay, due to maybe rib fracture, resulting from rib fracture. Then increased airway resistance, examples are secretions, that is accumulation of pooling of secretions. Then mucosal edema, bronchoconstriction, or presence of any foreign body in the airway. These are some of the examples. Then increased work of breathing may result from it may be from other causes like lung tissue involvement, example interstitial pulmonary fibrotic diseases, aspiration, ARDS, cardiogenic pulmonary edema or drug-induced pulmonary edema. Then pulmonary vascular problems like pulmonary thromboembolism, pulmonary vascular damage, then postoperative pulmonary complications. Then that is we have seen type 1 and type 2 respiratory failure. Then prophylactic ventilatory support, that is in such clinical conditions in which there is a high risk of future respiratory failure. Examples are brain injury. The patient may not have developed any respiratory failure, but the patient may develop. So patient is at a high risk. We have to continuously monitor the patient, but still in order to prevent respiratory failure, we can put the patient on mechanical ventilation. Then heart muscle injury is another example. Major surgeries, that is prophylactic ventilatory support in case of major surgeries, like example is CABG. In case of CABG, in case of CABG, patient will be put on mechanical ventilator for at least for 24 hours, and depending on the condition of the patient will be extubated or weaned from the mechanical ventilation and extubated. Then prolonged shock or a smoke injury, in such cases prophylactic ventilator support will be needed. Then hyperventilation therapy. This is a ventilatory support is instituted to control and manipulate partial pressure of carbon dioxide to lower than normal level. When the partial pressure of carbon dioxide goes lower than the normal level, the normal level is more than 45, it should maintain at 45, and if it goes very low, the respiratory drive will not be there. So in such cases also this mechanical ventilator support may be needed. Example, acute head injury. Now I will see the criteria for initiation of ventilatory support. Parameters are like PFT, pulmonary function studies, respiratory rate more than 35, tidal volume less than 5 ml per kg body weight, vital capacity less than 15 ml per kg body weight, and maximum inspiratory force less than 20 centimeter of water. Then ABG, that is pH less than 7.25, PaO2 less than 60 mm of Hg, and PaCO2 more than 50. Then we'll see initiation of mechanical ventilation. In these contraindications, we have discussed indications for initiation of mechanical ventilation till now. The contraindication, absolute contraindication, is untreated pneumothorax. In this case, we must find out the cause and treat it. Okay. After that only, accordingly we have to decide. Then relative contraindications are patient's informed consent. Then medical futility, reduction or termination of patient pain and suffering. If patient is not willing for a mechanical ventilatory support, then mechanical ventilatory support, if the patient is not willing, then we cannot. Essential components are patient, artificial airway, ventilator circuit, mechanical ventilator, then AC or DC power source, oxygen cylinder, and central oxygen supply. Then artificial airways, that is tracheal intubation is needed. It may be nasal or oral. Then supraglottic airway, this picture in that it is a supraglottic airway. Then cricothyrotomy or tracheostomy. Any of these artificial airway is needed for a mechanical ventilation. Then we'll see the intubation procedure. What are the articles or equipments needed for intubation? An oxygen flow meter and oxygen tubing, suction apparatus and tubing, suction catheter, ambu bag and mask, laryngoscope with its blades, 3 sizes of ET tubes, stillet, stethoscope, tape, syringe, and sterile gloves. Position the patient into the sniffing position. The picture shown here is the sniffing position. For this, the sniffing position, it requires flexion of the neck on the body and extension of the head on the neck, which means the ear and the sternal notch comes in the same plane. So for intubation, this is the best position for intubation. It straightens the airway and which helps in the intubation procedure. Then pre-oxygenate the patient with 100% oxygen. Do not allow more than 30 seconds to any intubation attempt. If intubation is unsuccessful, ventilate with 100% oxygen for 3 to 5 minutes before a reattempt. So before starting the procedure itself, before intubating the patient, we have to oxygenate the patient with 100% oxygen. How to oxygenate? Using the AMBU bag connected to an oxygen cylinder or oxygen supply. Oxygenate the patient to 100%. The person who intubate should stand at the head end of the patient. Then position the patient, as I told already, that is to a sniffing position. That is, place a blanket or a towel or pillow under the head or shoulders to get to come to this position. So position the patient in sniffing position. Then suction the patient's mouth. It helps in easy visualization of airway landmarks. With the patient's head in position, their mouth suctioned and the equipments ready, introduce the laryngoscope blade. Open the mouth, then slowly introduce the laryngoscope blade into the mouth. Displace the tongue towards the left side and visualize epiglottis. Once the epiglottis is visualized, just lift the epiglottis and visualize the trachea. Slowly insert the endotracheal tube into the trachea. Then the cuff on the this endotracheal tube should remain below the epiglottis. Then inflate the cuff. Then confirm tube position. It may be by auscultation of the chest. Auscultate the chest, connect the ET tube to the AMBU bag and check whether the air entry is equal in both the chest. Then bilateral chest rise, that we have to see the symmetry of the chest expansion. Then tube location at the teeth. Then carbon dioxide detector. This esophageal detection device or by capnography we have to check it. The first two methods are used usually, that is by auscultation of the chest and a bilateral chest rise. And if it is at a correct position, you can fix the ET tube, and along with that you can keep an airway because for suctioning and all, that will help, and also it will prevent biting on the tube. So airway should be kept and ET tube should be stabilized. That is the procedure of intubation.